Hi everybody, and welcome to another episode of Orthodoxy 101. In this continuing series on vestments, today we're going to look at the different styles and types of vestments that are used in the Orthodox Church. So we'll be looking at four different things. We'll be looking at usage, we'll be looking at style, clerical differences, and then color. So let's begin with usage. And here we have two basic categories. The first one is liturgical, something that you see here, or these vestments that are worn during the course of a liturgy. And then we have other vestments which are non-liturgical, like the anderi that I'm wearing, or this exorison. And those are worn when the priest is just conducting his daily business, although sometimes they can be worn during the service. Next, we'll be looking at style. Now, when I talk about style, one of the things is the actual formation of the garment itself. Here you see in the Greek style, you see that the collar is just a low collar that just hangs on the neck. In the Russian style, the collar in the back is much higher, almost reaching the back of the head. So there's a practical reason for this. In Greece, where it's warm, you don't want a lot of vestments, you want the air to cool your body. But in Russia, it can get very cold, and the high back protects the priest from high winds, those cold winter winds. Another example of style is the different patterns or designs that you will find on vestments. The most common style that you're going to see is going to be something like this, where you see the vestment decorated with many crosses. In fact, in the early church, this was called the polystavrion, or translated, many crosses. Another popular design would be not only with the crosses, but then also with the depiction of grapes, again indicating Jesus' reference to, do you not know that you are grafted from the vine? So we have many references to grapes and vineyards, and so you'll see that on priest vestments and certainly on bishop's vestments. In this style vestment, what you see, which is not necessarily common, but you'll see elements of both heaven and earth. You'll see animals depicted, angels being depicted, and then birds being depicted. Or you might just see a regular embroidered design that doesn't necessarily have a meaning associated with it, but the styling is very beautiful and very ornate. And of course, I'd be remiss if I didn't also point out that there's some latitude in terms of what a priest can wear. And in this particular vestment I received when I was in China, and you can see then the dragon design that's on this red vestment. Another stylistic difference is what you will see on the back of the vestment. Now, the most common thing that you're going to see on the back of the vestment is going to be then a cross. Many times that cross will also have an icon depiction. It could be of Jesus, it could be of the Virgin Mary together with the Christ child, or there could be other depictions, whether scriptural or stylistic. But this is the most common as the back of the vestment will be the cross. Here we just have the standard cross, but not with an icon depicted on it. Here we have the Christian symbol of the hero, and here we have the Virgin Mary and the Christ child just represented, and you can almost kind of barely make out the cross design. Now we'll look at the clerical differences, and this is the differences between the different levels of clergy. We'll start with the deacon. Now, the deacon's vestments are composed of three pieces. They do have the underlying tunic, but it's usually much more ornate than the priests. The second thing that they have is they have what's called the orarion. And the orarion typically is draped diagonally across his chest, and then when he receives communion, it will be formed then into an X on his body. He will also have then cuffs. When we look at the priest vestments, what happens with the orarion now is it's taken, and instead of being diagonal across, it is now sewn together. And so what you have is you have then the stole or the epitrachili. In the case of the bishop's vestments, Now, his symbol of authority is the omophorion. Normally, you'll hear people say that this church or this priest is under the omophorion of. What happens now with the stole is that this is then worn around the neck. So there are times that you will see the bishop wearing this as the stole and not necessarily around his neck as the omophorion. Now, the bishop will also wear a tunic, but the tunic will be, again, a little bit more elaborate, and we call that the sakos. In addition to this, you will normally see the bishop wearing what is called a mandia. And the mandia is basically a very, very large phelonion that is draped over him, and he'll use this as he enters the church, but he will remove it before the service actually begins. The last two pieces that belong to the vestments of the bishop would be his staff, which shows him as the shepherd of his much larger flock, and then also his hat, which we call a mitre, much more elaborate and jewel encrusted than would be the hat of the priest, which is just a basic black cap called a galimafi. So that brings up an interesting question. How come you don't see me wearing the galimafi on my head? And so the reason for this is that some bishops feel that the galimafi has a more monastic flavor to it, and so they ask that the priest do not wear the galimafi if they are serving in a parish. Join us for our next video where we'll be talking about the different colors of vestments and what that means. So remember, like, subscribe, and share our videos. See you soon.